Hi, this is Nandita Singh from the Print newsroom, and we're going live about whether or not big fat Indian weddings should bother Indians. With Isha Ambani and Anand Piramal's wedding, pre-wedding ceremonies just wrapped up in Udaipur over the weekend. There's been a lot of buzz and a lot of scrutiny over whether or not the extravagant displays of wealth benefit society and economy, or are they setting a bad precedent for people of relatively less wealth and lower income groups. The pre-wedding events obviously created a big buzz on social media. Most notably, Beyonce, a singing sensation in the West, flew down to perform, perhaps for the first time, at a private wedding function in India. Previously, Beyonce was reported to have taken $2 million in 2010 for a New Year's private event. 8 years later, while no one is sure what the exact figure is, it is estimated that it was considerably high. Mukesh Ambani, the bride's father, also happens to be the richest Indian and the 19th richest person in the world, with an estimated $47.3 billion net worth. And there was reportedly an app that guests had to download once they reached Udaipur for the pre-wedding events, just to go through the ceremonies and the events that were scheduled. Chartered planes were flown in, luxury cars were short in supply in Delhi because so many of them were taken to Udaipur over the weekend. So while there has been a lot of criticism about whether or not such high expenditure on weddings is justified, recently, ThePrint did a story talking about how it actually acts as a boost for local tourism as destination weddings become more in trend. So Rajasthan, for example, which has always been a tourist destination, is now fast up and coming as this place for royal weddings, to the point where even the Rajasthan official tourism website has a separate section talking about how it's become a hub for royal weddings. The Ambanis also had a bazaar set up of local artisans where they showcased, I think, dozens or even perhaps 50 or more local artists for the guests to interact with, to shop with. Reportedly, they also supplied funds for enough food for 5,100 people to be fed 3 meals for over 4 days. So in terms of the economic impact of weddings, there is certainly the sort of ancillary industry boost that is given to all the industries that surround a wedding. A wedding in itself, what we see on social media, a lot of wedding planners spoke to ThePrint and said, is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas, their picture-perfect moments and the smiles and laughter, that is just one part of it. But behind the scenes, there are close to 700 to 800 laborers working daily as tent walas or as mehendi people, even painters, sound technicians, you name it. Even if we talk about food or the catering companies that are employed, there is someone who's actually employed them to cut the onions, people who are sending in the raw materials for the food that is served. At least 30 to 40% of even hotel business comes from events like these, as we were talking to wedding planners. These cars that have gone to Udaipur, even from Delhi, but a lot of the labor is sourced locally. So we're talking about drivers, we're talking about maintenance crews for those cars. And one wedding planner even told us that there are part-time students who get employed as, the people who go to the airports to pick up guests. So even if they're earning about 500 rupees a day for that kind of work, that is over 3 days, 1,500 rupees in their pocket. And another wedding planner spoke about this chai wala who was called the Pushkar chai wala because he was from Pushkar. And but he became so famous and so renowned, he used to come on a colorful bicycle to these weddings, that all subsequent chai wala started being called the Pushkar chai wala. And it became a sort of brand around this one man's employment. And so trends start to emerge in terms of what is wanted at a wedding. A recent wedding planner who planned this sunset dinner for a couple in Jaisalmer last month was talking about how a cultural evening was set up, where local artisans, Banjara folk musicians, dancers were called, because people enjoy to experience a sort of cultural evening, especially at night on the dunes. That's become a new trend that has emerged. And so he spoke about how people from larger cities tend to be out of touch with more ethnic local cultures and traditions. So for them, it is a novel experience to go and experience all this. In terms of putting Rajasthan on the global tourist map, right? There Beyonce who flew down, there was Hillary Clinton at the event, there was Ariana Huffington, and all of these people danced with the likes of Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan, and it does get a lot of attention to Rajasthan. Even if we talk at a micro level about the Ambani wedding, Rajasthan is fast emerging as a hub or like as a wedding destination to be at. Counter to this argument, is the fact that India is emerging as a wedding destination. Is there pride in the fact that it's emerging as a wedding destination? Is that something we should celebrate, or something that we should be a little bit more critical of or think about? For a large part of the criticism, even on Twitter and in general discourse, has been that weddings are wasteful, that these are sort of temporary explosions of economy and celebrations that are set up, but they fade away, that it is conspicuous consumption in that sense, because it is not leading to any sort of final product being produced. There's nothing to hold on to, no tangible good being generated. And even in terms of just the displays of wealth, in a country that is continuing to struggle with class and caste disparities, and people who don't have access or as much privilege as some of our celebrities or our industrialists. So there is a notion of status then attached to the kind of wedding one is able to have in India. And marriage itself has been such a celebrated, sacrosanct concept, in the sense that the bigger the marriage you can have, the more your status is in society and amongst your neighbors. And the Rajasthan High Court, earlier this year in April actually, came out with an order in which they discouraged ostentatious spending on weddings, because there was a widow named Fuli Devi who wanted to prematurely take out money from her FDR. And this was money that was given to her as compensation for the death of her husband. But she needed to marry her daughter. And the High Court sort of intervened, and they said that this money was for her sustenance and was for her livelihood, and to think that she wanted to spend it on her daughter's wedding was not in her best interest. And so they made a larger statement about spending. But to compare, I think, these two income brackets and to expect them to take similar decisions is also arguably unfair, because one can argue, and people have, that the Ambanis are spending proportionate to what they have earned. To repeat, Mukesh Ambani is an exceptionally wealthy man. He is one of India's perhaps biggest industrialists. He generates employment in the thousands for the country in terms of the corporates or the companies that he works with. And so he is not spending above his means in that sense. And perhaps to expect us celebrities as well, there was the same kind of debate came up with Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas and Deepika Padukone and Ranveer Singh about, is this too much? Have they gone too far? And what kind of example are they setting? But a lot of people said that it's a personal choice, that to expect celebrities and industrialists to not behave the way regular society does, that for them that one day or one moment of celebration is also special, as it is for other people in the country, and to expect them not to want to celebrate that in their economic capacity would be unfair and slightly unrealistic. However, there also has been criticism in the sense that they should set an example for the rest of the country and for relatively weaker sections of society, because the middle class is aspirational in this country. We look up to our celebrities, and just in terms of dowry, the loans taken out for the weddings that people host in their families might be. This was also a question one of our users sent us about whether or not the middle class is going to emulate or spend beyond their means and find themselves in debt. Largely, the reply to this sort of criticism has been that that people will understand their own boundaries. Even wedding planners spoke about how people spend within the budgets that they create, and And that's exactly what Mukesh Ambani and his family and Isha Ambani are doing. I am taking live questions. You can tweet at us at @ThePrint India or comment on our YouTube channel. Right. In terms of the jobs that these weddings can create, it is almost like a ripple effect, because the larger the wedding, the more people will need to work on it, and for the longer number of days, the more labor will be employed. While the counter to this is that it is temporary employment, that it is labor rather than creating a job. It is, for example, to say that if people were to spend more on these weddings in the future, then these, like bands, for example, as I was talking about this bandwala earlier, will have another wedding to go to, and another opportunity to play and to earn his wage. And there was also an argument comparing that in 2015, Mukesh Ambani actually donated in charity close to 600-700 crores of rupees, which is equivalent to times what? Okay, close to 600 to 700 rupees, which is close to the expenditure that they are estimating to be in this wedding. So in terms, people are saying on social media that he is a taxpayer and that his family, this is a personal choice for them to decide on whether or not they want to celebrate this wedding in this fashion. For the local artisans of Udaipur, whoever we spoke to, spoke about an opportunity to earn, an opportunity to be visible. So even if we talk about the social media visibility that is being granted to destinations like these, that perhaps this culture is getting a more accessible, more popular, more mainstream platform in which to present itself. Because even the puppeteers or the puppeteering community in Rajasthan, which does not find perhaps as many opportunities for mainstream functions, is being incorporated into these sort of events. A lot of wedding planners spoke about this trickle-down effect, that they said that if the rich don't spend, then how will the poor earn? Because the money is essentially passing from up to down. And so as in the spending of money generates more money, even perhaps with a limited scope, because weddings are within a particular season. For this time, a lot of the labor is employed and benefits largely from the economic boost that these weddings are providing. Yeah, there was, oh my God. I'll be taking questions. I think a few questions have come in, which I am checking. Haven't we become a society which is in a habit of blaming the rich, even if they have genuine wealth? Haven't we associated a stigma with being rich? So this is the question that has just come up. Well, yes, it's true that there has been a certain backlash against perhaps not being rich, but a certain display of that richness or that wealth. And because I don't think the argument is against people earning or people moving up the social ladder or people having that wealth, but for people that cannot afford these kinds of opportunities, it stings, I think, largely is what people are saying, that it's not in good taste, that we need to become a more sensitive society in that sense, in terms of the class disparities that we do have. People on Twitter, I was reading some comments also talking about how, on one hand, you have farmers who are sending their meager wages back to the PM as a symbol of the kind of struggle that they have. There have been wide-scale protests, even in the capital recently. And on the other hand, you have a wedding like the Ambani wedding or the Deepika and Ranveer or a Nick Yanka wedding, where it's almost, people are saying that it's almost callous, that it's without restraint, that it's insensitive to the people that are struggling on a daily basis. There's been a certain also a feminist bent to the arguments against these grand weddings, where people have said that they set precedent for marriage being the most important function in a woman's life, and how that we need to push back to that a little bit, because families say for generations for weddings like these, and the giving away of the bride and notions of dowry, a lot of these, well, not the Ambani, and obviously not those grand weddings, are built on this aspiration that this is the most important part of a woman's life, to get married on this very special day. Once again, to tell you, I'm taking live questions on ThePrint, on our YouTube and our Twitter. Are we like...